Indeed, one of Australia's best loved early 70s groups, Daddy Cool there with Eagle Rock.
You're listening to ABC Radio.
Do you remember your first drink of alcohol? If we think about alcohol, how do we think about alcohol when it comes to alcohol in Australia? It's almost like a rite of passage in our culture. But more and more people are giving up the booze and taking up a life of sobriety. An Australian Institute of Health and Welfare survey found the number of people who had ditched the drink rose from 1.5 million to 1.9 million between 2016 and 2019. I want to find out a little bit more about that and about this rising number of Australians coming off alcohol. So joining us to tell us more is Faye Lawrence, who is the founder of Untoxicated, a non-drinking network of 8,000 Australians who socialise over morning teas and activities like mini golf and camping. Faye, welcome to Weekend Evenings.
Hi, Sirine. Thanks so much for having me on.
Great to have you on. So, Untoxicated. How'd you get it?
Yes.
How'd you get it started?
How did I get it started? Well, I gave up drinking myself just over 3 years ago, and one of the things that I found really challenging about that transition from, being quite a heavy drinker to sobriety was how am I going to operate socially without alcohol? And
Isn't
so
it interesting
I was
that was in your mind?
Oh, massively in my mind, because I was quite a big party animal, and it was sort of intrinsically linked to my identity. So I literally couldn't imagine what my social life was going to be like without it. And, I come from the UK originally. I've lived in Australia for 20 years. They're both massive drinking countries, aren't they? And so when I sort of embarked upon this sobriety journey, I was like, well, I'm not going to stay at home on a Friday and Saturday night. So I started looking around for what options, there might be out there, and I couldn't find anything. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to create something, and that's when Untoxicated was born. And obviously it struck a nerve, it grew and grew, and here we are today. We're in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. We've got quite a strong online community as well, so there's a need there, absolutely a need there.
And I want to get into I do want to get into a bit more around what Untoxicated, does, what kind of activities you do and the type of people that join. But before we do, your story is interesting and I think touches into what we also want to look at tonight. So you said you gave up, what was it, about just over 3 years ago?
3 and a bit years ago, yeah,
and
that's right.
Would you sort of happy to sort of share what it was for you?
Yeah, I'm an open book about it, because I ask away. I'm the consummate oversharer. I think as well because you have to be, well, some people have to be, because it helps break the stigma. The more people that speak out honestly and authentically and vulnerably about their experiences, the more it gives permission for other people to do the same. Because there's a lot of people out there in the same boat that just, are, cloaked in shame and self-loathing and all those other things that, go along with problematic drinking. So, I gave up 3 years ago, and I had to. I went into inpatient detox, and I think because I was always a very high-functioning, I was a professional. I was mum to a couple of kids. I was doing a psych degree. I was, had a mortgage, all those sorts of things. It allows you to sort of remain in denial for quite a long time, because even though you sort of do have these crisis moments, you think, no, I'm not like those other people. I've still got it all together. Look at what I'm doing. And, that allows you to sort of continue. And I did continue for decades. I did continue for decades until the wheels really, did come off. And that's when I went into hospital.
And now you're on where you're at, and you've come to Untoxicated. And hearing you speak about, there's also, I suppose, the other side of it that we could potentially look at as well around, yes, there are those who have given up alcohol, and then there are those who maybe really haven't gotten into alcohol. And I kind of say that, I could probably relate to that. I don't really drink. So there's that component as well. And that's why I called out, it's interesting that you touched on, all right, so what is this going to mean when I go out socially with friends? Because I think, I suppose from personal experience, but even hearing from other people that I've spoken with, is there that component around, in our Australian culture, if you don't drink, then, what do you mean you don't drink? Why?
Yeah,
is there a reason? Is it for religious purposes, or is it like there has to be a reason why you don't drink? Is that something you've come across in terms of Untoxicated and...
Yeah, absolutely. So the only stipulation to attending any of our events is just no alcohol at the event. And we don't ask why people are there, but, invariably you have conversations, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know it was a thing that some people just actually didn't like drinking.
Right.
So
there you go.
This was a revelation to me. But, we find people coming for all sorts of reasons, exactly like those you just mentioned. Sometimes it is religious reasons. Sometimes it's just, it really impacts on them negatively health-wise. They just don't like it. And the interesting thing has been how some of those people who just don't really drink a lot for whatever reason also can feel not necessarily isolated, but the comments that I've had, particularly when we've had dinners and things like that, is it's nice just to come here and not be questioned.
Right.
So I can come to dinner as someone who doesn't really drink, and people just accept that decision that I'm not drinking. Whereas I think, it's almost like people take offence almost, don't they, to someone who said, oh, no, thanks, I'm not drinking tonight, or I'm not really into it. I think that is shifting, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. But I think we are making steps in the right direction.
What have you noticed, Faye, say overseas, if we say look to, maybe you said talking to the UK and even looking at the US, is alcohol a strong part of the social culture in those parts of the world? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
In the same way that it is here?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the UK, and there's a massive drinking culture in the UK, but they are actually quite a bit further ahead in terms of, I think, anyway, in terms of their shift to, for example, manufacturing of non-alcoholic, alternatives, like wines, beers, and all those sorts of things. But I've noticed a massive shift in the last 12 months in Australia as well. And I'm not 100% sure about the US. I think it's the same because I'm in a number of groups across, all over the place. But, look, I personally am not anti-alcohol. I think people should have the right to choose. I'm not judgmental. I think when you tell people not to do something, certainly if you told me not to do something, I would go, right, well. But I just think that people should be able to not drink if they want to as well. So it's just about not having any judgment either one way or another. I don't care if other people drink, fill your boots. But I think that if people, want not to, then they should be able to. That should be a viable choice for them, and not one that warrants, a lot of attention and criticism
and questions and
exactly.
that comes with it. Well, on that then, Faye, you've coined the term sober curious. What does that mean?
Well, actually, I can't take credit for that. It's actually an author called Ruby Warrenting. She wrote a book called Sober Curious. And I think that's something that people are, rather than necessarily an all or nothing approach, because there's a lot of people who aren't like I was, and they're not at rock bottom, crisis point, got to that extreme stage. There's a lot of people in the middle who kind of, they call grey area drinkers is one term that's used.
Right.
And they're just people who are just probably drinking a little bit too much. They're not, suffering serious impacts on their life, but they're like, I just kind of want to explore this a bit. So sober curiosity is more around, okay, well, I'm just going to see how I feel when I, have a big night, or I'm just going to see how I feel about having dinner out without a glass of wine, or, so it's just sort of not having that all or nothing approach. It's taking that sense of curiosity to your drinking and not putting judgment on it one way or another, and then seeing what unfolds. And for a lot of people, that is, I don't really feel that great a lot of the time. So I'm going to reduce, my consumption.
If you've just joined us, you're with me, Sirine Demachkie, on ABC Radio's Weekend Evenings, and I'm joined by Faye Lawrence. She's the founder of Untoxicated, and we're talking about the growing number of Australians giving up alcohol. If you've given up drinking and you want to join the conversation, please do. Please join us. Give us a call on 1300 222 702. You talked a little, Faye, there with regard to some alternative drinks, so non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
Is that what we're kind of getting at? So what are some alternative drinks that you've noticed that have come on the market? One that immediately comes to mind for me that I kind of find is a little bit fun is, and it is in a bottle that you would think looks like champagne. I'm hopeless. I can't call out what type of alcohol is what, but it's like an apple sort of like a flavoured fizzy cidery kind of champagne-y thing. I'm hopeless. I can't think of the name or anything along those lines, but is this what we're talking about?
Well, there's lots of things. You've got spirits, you've got beers, you name it. There's now a non-alcoholic alternative or a very low alcohol, no or low alcohol alternative. Okay. So they're really springing up massively. And there's some, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name product names, but there's some amazing offerings out there. I think they're not for everyone. I mean, I know a lot of people can find them triggering if they were someone that had problematic, alcohol use before. But for a lot of people, I liken it to, when you want to cut back or stop smoking, you might use a nicotine replacement.
Right.
But for other people, it's just they actually don't want to stop drinking. They just want to drive that night or, or they just want to run a marathon or something, so they're just having a bit of a break, and it helps them still feel part of things.
Well, can it also be along the lines of, so you don't drink, but, and I think about myself sometimes, like if I am out after work or something and it's with friends and we're at either a bar or a cab, along those lines, I don't want a Coke. I don't want an orange juice. I don't want those drinks. Like, do you know what I mean? I kind of want something different. I don't care if it's something with fruit mixed with something fizzy, but just something different because I'm kind of, about to spend the next few hours with friends. Exactly.
You want to feel like you're having a bit of a treat, a reward, and something a bit special that you're out on a Friday night or something. Absolutely. And I think venues are cottoning on slowly to the fact that they're actually missing out on a huge market here that would otherwise be drinking post-mix and yet another Diet Coke when they could be, selling non-alcoholic cocktails, for example, and still the customer wins and they win in terms of, they're getting better sales, better margins, all those sorts of things. So I think we're definitely starting to see more sophistication in terms of the offerings, and particularly I think Sydney and Melbourne are pretty good at that. So I definitely think things are shifting. Yeah, 100%.
And with Untoxicated, so tell us more about this. So as I was we were talking about a little bit earlier, you're the founder. It's a non-drinking network of about 8,000 Australians who socialise over sort of morning teas and activities like mini golf and camping. So tell us more about the kind of activities you do. Is this like on a weekly basis or ad hoc? Or?
Yeah, so I have to laugh at the morning tea thing because a journalist somewhere, I don't know where they got the morning tea from, but that's been included, and I'm like, oh no, don't.
Oh, you don't do morning teas? All right, well, scrap it. We never said it. Never mind.
Oh God, we sound really
scrap
boring.
It. They don't do morning teas. Forget I said anything. Go ahead, Faye. Why don't you tell me in your own words?
All good. So, like I said, the reason that I came up with it was really for people to have things to do on a Friday and Saturday night, because if you are trying to cut back or give up, what do you do on a Friday and Saturday night? You probably don't really want to be around friends who, getting smashed, quite possibly. And as you change your habits, it's good to have other people around you who are on the same journey and who understand. So what we do, so the events are usually weekly. We're in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. We are expanding this year. And I would say in Brisbane's our biggest group. We usually have 2 or 3 events a week. And the sorts of things we do are things like, we do movies, we do dinners, we've got a Sober and Sober Curious singles night, we do camping, we do picnics in the park, we do non-alcoholic beer tasting. We do a real raft of things. And everyone's a volunteer. So all my hosts around in all the locations are all volunteers. All of us are volunteers. And so it's just community driven, which I think is absolutely wonderful and really gives it a beautiful warmth
vibe.
when people come along. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool, even if I say so myself.
Absolutely.
It is. It's a lovely community. It really is, yeah.
And what if someone trying to get a sense of, in terms of, who kind of comes along, finds out about you?
Yeah.
What if someone gave up alcohol, I don't know, say for a few months? Could they join the Untoxicated group? How can they find the Untoxicated group?
Yeah, so anyone can join. The only stipulation is no drinking at the event. So you could be someone who still drinks and you just want to knock off the booze. Yep, come along. We don't, we're not going to quiz you at the door or anything like that.
Sure.
All the information is on
relaxed.
our website. Yeah, it is, because we don't want people to come along and feel like it's walking through the doors of a recovery program where they're admitting that they're a problem drinker, because they might not be. There's all those valid reasons about why people are choosing not to drink, whether it's just for that night or whether it's for the rest of their lives. And, just by coming along to one of our events doesn't mean that you've got a problem with alcohol. It could be myriad reasons why you're there. If people go to the Untoxicated website, which is www.untoxicated.com.au, not intoxicated, Untoxicated, they'll find all the information there with links to the group. We've also got an online support group as well, with a couple of thousand people in there too at various stages of their journey. So they can find the link to that there as well.
Faye, thank you so much for your time and for sharing the group and sharing and introducing us, if you like, to Untoxicated and the support group. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Sirine. I really appreciate it. Come along.
Oh, yes. You did say Friday and Saturday nights. Friday and Saturday nights.
Yeah, I think there's one on this weekend.
Okay.
See what the diary's looking like.
Good one. Thanks a lot, Faye.
Thanks, Sirine. See ya.
That was Faye Lawrence, founder of Untoxicated. All right, what have we got coming up next? Coming up next, we've got movie and entertainment news update. There's a bit happening in that world at the moment. We're going to have a look at the big contenders who are looking at who's kind of going to get the big awards at the 78th Golden Globe Awards. We're also going to get a bit of an insight for a new Law and Order SVU spin-off. You know, the police drama show that I'm talking about, right? Yeah, so that and more. Do stay with us, but first, let's hear a track. We've got the Bad Loves here with Tribal.
Sleep